With the overwhelming success of the MCU and its related properties, it's hard to imagine a time when superheroes and other similarly like-minded media didn't saturate the majority of what we consume. However, there was a time when such movies were considered cheesy and looked at under a different light. With major hits such as Gangs of New York and Minority Report to contend with, it would be hard to imagine someone dressed in a spandex suit filling cinema seats. In spite of that, I'd like to cast your mind back to the year 2002. The top song at the time was Lose Yourself by Eminem, Elon Musk had just founded SpaceX, and in the US, Clone High was currently airing on MTV.
I like your funny words, Magic Man.
Not that I'd know any of this at the time, however, because I was 4. But you know what 4-year-old me was all about? Spider-Man. If you'd told someone at the time that a Spider-Man movie would release and be the first film ever to make $100 million at the box office during its opening weekend, whilst also being released in the same year as The Two Towers, Attack of the Clones, Chamber of Secrets, and The World's Most Hated Baby, they'd have laughed at you in disbelief. Doubly so if you'd told them it was directed by the guy who made The Evil Dead. 2002's Spider-Man holds a special place in my heart, due in part to it being the first major superhero movie I can remember watching. The Raimi trilogy was a fun time for me when I was younger, and before Iron Man's eventual release in 2008, you'd honestly think this was the best that superhero movies could get. Having rewatched the film recently for this review, however, it certainly changed the colour of those rose-tinted glasses I like to wear. I still love these movies, but I'm not going to sugarcoat this review due to my own blind nostalgia. This movie is very cheesy, and several aspects of it have not held up as well as you'd like them to. Whether that be the high school students, or many jokes that haven't aged well, or the many lines of dialogue throughout that will have you cringing into the back of your seat.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
Damn, Peter, for someone all about protecting the little people, you sure are intolerant of others.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Starting off with the film's pacing, I have to give it credit. The pacing is actually fairly well done, with Act 1 moving us quickly through Peter's origin story into the origin of the film's villain, setting us up nicely for the inevitable conflict between these two characters later in Act 2. There are several scenes during this movie that can be seen as nothing but setup for later reveals. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, as it gives the audience a clear structure on how the film will be laid out. The film goes somewhat off the rails in the second half, with everything moving along at a blinding speed, and characters making questionable choices in order to move the plot along sometimes. But if it's to keep audiences at the time invested, I guess I can give it a pass. This time. As by now I think we are all well aware of the origin story of Spider-Man. It's been done over and over and over again, with different results each time. Before the overuse of Uncle Ben's death in future films, this scene was a real emotional gut punch. Having just previously watched Peter arguing with his uncle about his responsibility and how his actions can affect those around him. But from this clip I can say that the acting in this film, it's not great. However, the big standout that I think everyone can agree on is Willem Dafoe. He understood exactly what he needed to do for a movie like this, and he really brought his A-game, bringing such an extreme and over-the-top personality into every scene that he's in.
You know how much I sacrificed?
When I first watched this movie, I was absolutely terrified of his portrayal as the Green Goblin. This man down on his luck, having lost his mind and now terrorizing New York after an experiment gone wrong.
Back to formula.
Now, what person at the time wouldn't think this was the scariest dude around? He's been iconic in nearly every film he's ever been in, with some amazing standout performances.
To any time. Forgotten to any god or devil, forgotten even to the sea.
And some passable ones.
Oh, we can do more than just talk.
But overall he does his job well and provides us with an over-the-top, if somewhat unintentionally funny villain. Now, it would be an absolute lie if I said that J.K. Simmons wasn't the most memorable part about this movie. He's only got 5 minutes of screen time, but his portrayal as J. Jonah Jameson is nothing but fantastic. You know he's iconic when this one actor has played the same character in 2 separate reboots, and we love him even more for it this time around. Despite how stacked No Way Home is looking as a movie, I really hope we have a section just on Jameson, just to get a few more scenes with this character. Now obviously, when looking back, most people like to view these movies as the whole trilogy, but looking at it from a standalone view, Spider-Man is a solid first entry into what would eventually become the Raimi trilogy, offering a strong performance for the most part from its cast and a simple to follow narrative. It's a very inoffensive movie, and I don't think that's overall a bad thing. While it may not have held up as well as similar movies from the time, I believe Spider-Man stands as a shining example of just how far we've come, both in storytelling and writing quality, as well as the improvements in CGI. They've all come on leaps and bounds when it comes to adapting comic books to the big screen. While Marvel continues to put out major blockbusters with ever-increasing stakes, but a similar tonal formula, 2002 Spider-Man is nice when you want to go back to the simpler times. It's cheesy and popcorn fun, and it's a film that I can always go back and watch every now and then. Would I suggest you watch this film? Absolutely. It may be a bit old, it's almost 20 years old at this point, but it's honestly just such a fun time to see how far we've come from when these movies first came out. And overall, if I had to give it a score, I'd definitely give it a... Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I like to post my random thoughts of the day there every now and then, and I'll see you all in the next video.